Hello everyone, my name is Artem Morris. I'm from Ukraine. Happy to be here today and joining the course. So briefly about myself, I have mainly startup background, working for the startups in the US, in Canada, and Singapore, helping them in international business development, essential international expansion, and also fundraising. Also have created my own company in commercial real estate, but around 1 year ago, just from pure desire to join all the active people who are involved in repealing Russian aggression, I decided to join Brave One, which is Ukraine government's cluster for defense technologies, which essentially unites most of the defense tech startups in Ukraine working in domains like UAVs, unmanned ground vehicles, sea drones that actually destroyed most of the Black Sea Russian fleets, deep strike drones that are effectively hitting oil facilities in Russia, and all the other stuff, with the main mission of our cluster to make sure that Ukrainian army has the technology needed to repeal Russian aggression. Because in our opinion, that's our only way to compete with Russia and to be able to survive. We can't compare our manpower, or we can't compete with them in conventional weapon. So the only way where we essentially can compete would be the innovations. And that's our goal to help to nurture those innovations both inside Ukraine and also bring the technologies outside of Ukraine that we are lacking, to be sure that our army has everything necessary to protect the independence, protect our people. And working through that, we are also obviously learning a lot of lessons, and some of those lessons we are very happy to share with our allies, because we believe that is important. That's what we all need to understand better. So I appreciate the opportunity to share this, and I wanted to talk on one particular topic that it seems pretty important. On the one hand, it seems quite obvious. On the other hand, it might be not so obvious. So I wanted to talk about the effective tech, and essentially how more and more the current warfare is moving from high-tech technologies, high-tech solutions, to something that is very goal-oriented and that is able to deliver achieving those goals with minimal effort, with minimal resources, and with a great opportunity to scale in. Just to be sure that we are on the same page, I wanted to go into the concept, what is high tech? So, and what sometimes we see, including from the support that we get from our allies in terms of like technological solutions that's getting delivered. We see in some cases that the solutions that are very technological, they're sometimes like too over-engineered, meaning that the cost of that solution is sometimes too high. They're complex to operate, meaning that they require additional training, they require more people to be sure that it's operational. Also, because of this sophistication, they're very vulnerable when it comes to real-life battlefield conditions, just because they require a lot of repairments, they require a lot of maintenance, and it means it is hard to operate. And because of all these factors, it's also quite hard to scale those solutions. And today's warfare, it's a lot about quantities. It's a lot about your ability to deliver something in huge scale. Our adversaries, they do this very well, and it's just not working if you have like great solution, very high tech, that creates a lot of capabilities, that you do have like a very small number of those solutions. Because once it is approached with hundreds of cheap yet effective like products, you just don't have enough resources to actually counter that. And when we talk about effective tech, on the other hand, what we mean by that is the solution is actually very tailored to the goals and to what you want to achieve. So you don't want to overinvest resources, you don't want to overinvest your time, but you want to get something that is just working fine with as small resources as you need to achieve the particular goal and particular mission. And by having those factors, it means that in a lot of senses, this solution would be easy to scale because of the cost and because of the simplicity. Uh, to bring it to real life, I actually wanted to come with a case study that we see today in Ukraine. Um, as you know, drones is a critical part of the warfare today. They account for the most of the damages and destruction, including destructing heavy equipment, very expensive equipment like tanks, like artillery, like other stuff. Um, of course, the main countermeasure for drones would be the electronic warfare. And as you might know, Russia is probably one of the most advanced country in the world in terms of the electronic warfare, and they are very effective in jamming and spoofing the signal of the drone. So essentially, the operator loses the control of the drone, and the drone, in most cases, would simply fall from the sky somewhere in the field and is lost. Ukrainians, we do always the same. We invest a lot in electronic warfare, and it is part of Brave One portfolio. We currently work with more than 100 companies in electronic warfare. So this is like a true battle from both sides, how to make sure that our drones can fly under the electronic warfare. And once thinking about those circumstances, there are two solutions, as we see. One solution is more high tech, and that would be AI enabled drones, essentially the drones that are using computer vision that are able to detect the target and fix on that target and autonomously deliver the payload to that particular target. What is good about the solution? It has a lot of like capabilities and potential resources for improvement, but it's also pretty sophisticated. You need quite a lot of time to develop it to be very effective. You need a big database, essentially to make sure that your neural network has like all the needed data pictures to learn and to understand what are these types of targets and to be able to detect those, especially understanding that the quality of the images, quality of the video that you typically get is quite bad. On the other hand, when we talk on like effective tech, something very simple is just taking your conventional drone and adding the optic fiber, essentially the cable to it. You putting it into simple words, you take a coil with 20 kilometers of that cable, you attach it to the drone, and then the drone flies, having the very stable connection between the drone itself and between the operator. It might seem like quite an absurd solution because you understand that like there are trees, the terrain is so uneven, like having such a long cable like of 20 kilometers long, it's very difficult like to control, and there can be a lot of obstacles to it. Putting it into like context, imagine that you are trying to fish you're going for fishing and you have a line that is 20 kilometers and you'll for sure get stuck somewhere. But surprisingly, it works. And also another example about thinking to it, like in civil life, in like peaceful life, you can have a luxury to work on some like high-tech solutions. In the warfare, you just don't have that privilege because the pace of development and innovation is so high. When we talk into our like civil life example, we know that electric cars, they do have like batteries. Batteries are typically a very expensive element of those electric cars, but that's and also like they require a lot of maintenance. It is high tech element. On the other hand, imagine that all the electric cars are connected with cables to the power grid. That is something very similar that we see today with the drones. So instead of making them autonomous, instead of making this like high tech, they simply connected in the most like flat and with very limited resource, just connect with a cable to the operator, and this is how they fly under the electronic warfare. Despite a lot of people this thought that it wouldn't work, we see that now it's working, and it is accountable for significant damage to the most advanced equipment, both from our side and also from the Russian side. And I just like added a very short video just to get you an idea of how it works, like physical. So what is the benefit of these fiber optic drones? That the quality of the image is very well. It's very high because of the essentially the stability of the signal. It's because of this quality of the image, it's easier to be controlled by the operator. And this is essentially how it works. So the operator station and is then connected through the cable to a drone that typical 15-20 kilometer long. And one of the potential reasons why we believe that effective tech is on the rise is also connected with the change of the warfare itself. So before, we know that typically losing the equipment would be very closely connected with losing human life, right? Because all of the solutions that we were using, tanks, planes, whatever, they were manned solutions. And once you were investing more in high-tech capabilities of that equipment, it would potentially increase the chances of survival of those people, like pilots or the crew of those systems. On the other hand, because the war is becoming more and more unmanned, typically overinvestment in that equipment, it yields very limited benefit because the lifespan of the equipment is so short, and the overall idea of the equipment is not to make sure that it lives longer. In most cases, it is just needs to hit the target. Like the shorter the lifespan, in a lot of cases, would be even better. Like because you can actually just put very cheap components that do not require like to sustain like damage, to sustain different weather conditions, just to be sure that they are able to get to the target and hit the target. And this is like ideal situation for this effective tech to develop, because you just want to invest as little as possible to achieve the goal that is like your mission. And when we talk about the key principles of building these effective tech solutions, first it would be to very clearly understand your goal. Not to start with the resources, not to start with your knowledge, but really start with the goals that you want to achieve, and then try to find the most simple, the shortest way to get to that goal with as few resources as possible. The next very critical component of all the solutions today would be an ability to scale those, and also ability to train people like in a very short time to be able to operate those. Because there are so many different solutions, because the war is so dynamic, we see that typically key solutions on the battlefield that become mass, they change every 3 months. And once you get into the solutions that require long training, you might happen in the situation when you just finish the training of one solution when another solution is prevalent on the battlefield, and you go to another stage of training. So it really doesn't work, and then the reward of having those high-tech solutions becoming so minimal. So you want to reduce the training time to make sure it is as short as possible, and then to deliver those solutions in scale that they're in abundance to be able to actually get the results. That's pretty it. Here I want just like to highlight some of the background and share with you some links. Also, if you do have questions to me about this or about overall other lessons that we see here in Ukraine and through the development of defense tech, please feel free to write to my email, and here's my LinkedIn and QR code to my profile.
Thank you so much. I have three questions. The first is how do you imagine that things like, say, medical supplies, whether on the front lines or back at the hospitals, how might that also sort of be changing as we think about what you're mentioning with effective tech?
So from the medical supplies and overall like logistics, we actually see a huge change now, again, thanks to the rise of these unmanned solutions. While it might be not that difficult to deliver something like up to 20 kilometers to the front line, you can simply like with the cars or whatever, like armored vehicles, because this is still like kind of like yellow zone. Let's say it's quite risky, but still it's not that deadly. But this last miles, when you get closer to essential like the front line itself, almost anything that is moving there, it's destroyed very swiftly with FPV drones or with other type of solutions. So what we see now is this unmanned ground vehicles. They become so popular, and in our opinion, in 2025 we will see the how unmanned ground vehicles actually become as widely spread as now drones are spread, and our soldiers, like Russians as well, they start to use it more and more for logistical reasons, just because it's very hard to carry something on yourself. Obviously, you don't have a luxury to take a car because it will be destroyed in this like last 15 or 20 kilometers. So you essentially put everything on those UGVs, and they deliver safely and effectively the supplies. Most popular would be actually the water, something like very basic, but it's hard to carry. You need it in big quantities at the front line. So how to deliver this water? Just you put everything on this like logistic drones, and same like with medical supply. Another popular item would be actually the wood that you need for the trenches. It's something that you don't think a lot, but it's again super heavy to carry. You don't have an equipment to put it, so it used to be that a lot of like soldiers were carrying the wood by themselves to then like create a good position, like fortified position on the battlefield. And now there are unmanned solutions where you can actually carry those wood with.
On that with the concept of mass, so like swarms and just and more, and in some ways trying to disproportionately kind of influence just by on sheer numbers. What could you elaborate more on some of the implications on what the industrial base needs to look like, or how that has to? What are some of the dynamic needs that you're seeing that need to be in place to be able to fulfill this kind of shift that's changing every 3 months?
Yeah, so just to give some numbers, we see like what is like public information, what I can share. Last year, the target for Ukraine was like with our local industrial base to create at least 1 million of FPV drones, and we exceeded that quite significantly. So once we're talking about the drones, we're talking about millions, and still like even with millions, it's never enough. Just because they're like cheap, they're effective, they get lost easily as well. But you don't want to be in the situation when your soldiers they do have this shortage of like very equipment solutions. Um, so you want them to be absolutely in abundance. So every time there is like a need and the enemy is trying to attack particular sector of the battlefield, you want to make sure that the brigade which is there have like solution to like storage of thousands of that stuff to like to make sure that to be able to repel this attack. Same about ground vehicles. 2024 was probably first year when they started to be implemented in a relatively big scale from both sides, and it was the year when both sides started to build the tactics of how to actually implement those, because we never had such solutions like unmanned ground vehicles, and now they do have a number of different modifications. Like logistics are easy, but recently one of our brigades called Hartia, they had first fully autonomous robotic assault on enemy position. So they used ground vehicles, they used aerial UAVs, and they combined all these different types of unmanned system to attack the enemy trenches. So it's very interesting to see how the tactics develop. But to be sure that it's working, you always need to have a lot of this stuff.
In that, for the participants who are listening and are thinking that they may have something that looks like it could be useful for the effective technology that you present, what are sort of approaches that they may take to either get visibility on the product that they have, or to perform a demonstration?
Yeah, so in Ukraine, we are obviously like very happy, as I mentioned before, to be sure that our soldiers have the solutions both from Ukraine but also internationally that can improve improve their capabilities and just be sure that they do have everything they need to protect themselves. So in Bray One, we work also actively with international manufacturers. So on our website, that is also would be in the presentation, you can simply submit like your solution, share key information about the solution, and our team, which is also consists of experts from General Staff of Ukraine, so essentially like military, we would be able to evaluate those solutions to see if it's not duplicating the actual capabilities that we have in Ukraine, but bringing something new. And once it is, we will be happy to help you first, like to bring that solution to Ukraine, to help you with the field testing, like close to Kyiv or whatever, like in safe conditions. And once it goes through this field testing, in most cases you would get the feedback, and then you'll be able to get it like to the front line and get the very detailed feedback report from the brigades and what should be done.
Well, Artem, thank you so much for joining us for Dual Use Ventures.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. Like, was great to share some of the lessons that we learned here, and we believe like we are in the same boat together. Like now Ukraine, we are on this like forefront, and like we like live this reality in a little bit like harsh situation, but we still like face the same problems and like same challenges. So we need to share this knowledge and to work together to be sure that we do have all the necessary resources to protect the values that we do have together, such as democracy and such as like our way of living.
Thank you so much for sharing.